Hello, welcome to the premiere episode of TurnKey Publishing. My name is Matthew Chan, and I have with me my guest host, Tony Centavo.
Hi.
I'm really excited about this series because I'm really passionate about the subject of publishing. And my friend Tony also has a strong interest in publishing, so I'm very grateful that he's here so we can have this conversation. And really the goal of this show is to educate, perhaps make you aware of things that are happening that most people don't know about. So how are you doing today, Tony?
Doing fantastic, Matthew. I'm really excited to be a part of the Turnkey Publishing discussion.
Yeah, as you know, I've been living the turnkey publishing life for a number of years now, even before I wrote the book.
And I've really been impressed by how many titles you put together in a very short period of time, and I'm really excited about following in your wake, if that's the right way to describe it.
I appreciate
getting
that.
other people introduced to a new way of looking at publications and the whole matter of writing a book.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Well, the thing about it is, Tony, the reason why I've been able to produce so many titles in a relatively short amount of time is I really had to relook at everything from ground zero. I studied the publishing business for a couple of years. Read a lot of books, went to seminars, and just kind of took it all in. And I really wanted, I had higher goals, so I wanted to distill the information to something that was simpler, that was kind of something that I could implement, and it wouldn't break the budget. So I was thinking that was very, very important.
Well, that's good. Can I ask you a question as we're getting started?
Yeah.
As you would imagine, most people, very much like myself, would follow the traditional path. I know that's not the way you live your life, but what really led you to start questioning what had been the accepted means of publishing to start with your approach that you mastered and turned into the turnkey publishing?
Well, Tony, you kind of flipped it on me. I was going to ask you, what do you think are the challenges regarding the obstacles on it? Let's see if it matches up.
It's probably a good way to start because I'll go back to when I was in the second grade. I wrote this little short story. It was Sonny the Rabbit. I actually had my little illustrations and stuff in there. And so I guess I've always enjoyed writing, but as a professional person, my perspective on writing was, okay, writing the book is probably the easy part. And I think I've got two friends who I would say one has published many books. I think she's got 7 or 8.
Okay.
And the other I know has published 1, and then there's this other person I know who has published a book of poetry. But all of them, after they got the book self-published, they were selling them out of the trunk of their car. Or the one lady who I'm referring to, I've got, she has all her friends who, as soon as she publishes another one, I've got 8 of her books so far that she's published.
She hits all her friends up to go buy a copy.
But my mental picture was I wanted to see my books in like Barnes and Noble or Books of Me or on a shelf somewhere.
I know.
To see, for the world to see that I'd actually done something. So not knowing how it was going to turn into the book that was going to wind up somebody else reading kind of took away some of the motivation to actually start putting words on paper because I didn't know how they would wind up as a merchantable item. So that's kind of the short strokes that you basically have taken a whole different approach to.
Well, and what you just said is actually quite common. I mean, people can't imagine, they can't figure out how to get that book into the bookstore.
Right.
I mean, it seems like a daunting task. And the more people learn about the publishing business, the more put off they are about it. I mean, they hear about literary agents. They talk about, you hear about proposals and submitting it,
Really?
waiting, and the more people dig into it, the more put off people get by it, and it really discourages a lot of people.
Well, I guess I figured I was going to ask my friends, well, how did you do this? And so I found a better friend to ask, I see. But
well, the thing about it is, I'm going to tell all our viewers now. I have no friends in the publishing business. I really don't. I mean, what I mean by no friends in the publishing business means that I have no relationships with anybody in traditional publishing, meaning like anybody from New York or from the old school. Now, I do have some relationships who have adopted a different model of publishing.
Okay.
But as far as traditional publishing, I have no friends. And you know what? I could care less, which allows me a great deal of freedom to say what I need to say on this show. And
So
but
you're a renegade of sorts.
well, whatever, because see, I'm very results oriented.
Mhm.
I kind of know where I want to go, and I try to boil it down to issues that I feel are important to me. Like, for example, you talk about the bookstore.
Right.
Well, you're not the only one that's ever mentioned that. Would I ever like to see my book on a bookstore? Of course I would. But is that necessary? For me, it is not necessary. And the reason why it's not necessary for me personally is because we have the internet. Amazon is out on the internet.
Right,
There are
right.
so many online merchants that are selling books nowadays. You can actually sell from your own websites, from eBay. There's word of mouth. And so I'm not married to the bookstore. Would I like it? Yes. But am I going to not do a book because it doesn't show up at a bookstore? It is not. Because for me, I already did my soul searching that the benefit of having a book far outweighed, the need for it to show up at a bookstore. And if that meant getting it published without the bookstore's help, then so be it.
Okay. Well, in light of the most people's perspective being very much like mine, I'm sure, of seeing it in the bookstore being a necessary way of getting it out to the world, you just made it very clear that there are a lot of things that, to think that I order stuff off of Amazon, but I've never thought of selling a book on Amazon. And I think it's just a matter of breaking the notions that people have of the traditional approach to publishing that sets up a series of roadblocks for me. As I was saying, the idea of even starting without knowing how it was going to get to the market. How does it even become a book? I type it on my word processor. There's a difference between sticking something in one of those acetate covers and running a little spline down it. But to actually get it where it's got a IBN number, all those things. Most people are like me. If you don't ask the questions, you don't get the answers. You don't know the solutions. And I think that most people are probably stuck at I don't even know where to start. So the end is not even an issue, it's getting started. There are other people who won't start because they don't know how to get to the end.
Right.
Which was probably
And this is
my
why,
case.
right? And this is why, Tony, I really wanted to get the series going, because there's no way in 30 minutes I'm going to be able to cover all the steps that it requires to get a book out. So, at least for today's episode, what we're going to do is talk about the broader strokes.
Okay.
And then we are going to talk about all the intermediate steps, because a lot of people really are put off and they're discouraged. They don't know where to go. And further, I have no problem saying this, is that there's a lot of brainwashing going on.
Exactly.
There is a lot of elitism going on. And a lot of these people want to be in a position of deciding what gets published or not. I've actually had someone say to me that, if I had it my way, your book would never be published. Well, it's a good thing I didn't ask his permission. You see, it's that kind of thinking that makes me especially passionate about it.
Right.
My thing is, if you want to do it, and you've got something good to say, and you've got something you want to share with the world, you should be able to do it.
Absolutely.
Okay? Now, whether or not you have the gumption to do it, that's kind of your issue.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you need all the trappings of traditional publishing, like you need the acknowledgement, someone gives you permission, you want the literary agent to take you on, you need that bookstore to display your book, I don't know what to tell you. But as far as I'm concerned, it's been a positive experience having gone the road I have. And there's a great deal of empowerment that I can produce a book very inexpensively at any time. I don't have to ask anybody, and I have total creative freedom, which is very, as you might guess, it's very important. I don't want my stuff edited down. I don't want to always make things politically correct. I got to say what I got to say in the way I want to say it.
Well, as we're having this conversation here, the thought struck me that I can't say I read a lot about Henry Ford, but this little piece I know is that people were making automobiles probably 15 years or so before Henry Ford came along. But what Henry Ford did was find or develop a strategy. He didn't find it, he developed a strategy for mass producing automobiles, for, I guess, taking it out of the custom art, turning it into a mass production process. So with the things that, even the title of TurnKey Publishing brings into that notion of how do I, as Henry Ford democratized the automobile where everybody could have one or afford to have one, maybe Matthew Chan is the Henry Ford of publishing. So with that, we'll just kind of keep that notion.
Well, you're too kind, but I will give you credit, Tony. I mean, I really, when you told me, this was I think about a year or two ago when I finally released the book, and you said that, it seems like you're trying to democratize publishing.
Right.
I never put it in those terms, but your observation is actually astute. I am trying to democratize the publishing, but I just never thought, verbalize it in such a way, because I'm trying to empower any person, okay, and it is very, very possible to get the idea, the concept from your brain out to a finished product in a relatively quick amount of time.
Wow.
But it does require you to have to adopt a new paradigm shift in the way you're thinking and the way you operate. Obviously, if you're fixated on a particular way, then what I'm going to talk about is not going to work for you.
Yes.
Or it might even offend your sensibilities. And so, we're going to be able to explore these different issues. Now, in your case, Tony, I'm actually surprised you never felt put off by the writing. See, that gets people all wound up. The fact that people have to write.
Well, let me explain that. My mother was an English teacher. And I say jokingly, I've been grading papers since I was old enough to read. I mean, as I think back over the years. And I enjoy expressing my ideas, and I think I actually express myself better in writing than I do verbally, which I think I'm pretty good at that too.
Yes.
Writing to me has always been the expressive art. I can't sing, I can't play music, but writing was always a way I could.
Well, how come you're not finished with your book then, Tony? Am I putting you on the spot?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Well, it's been no problem. Come on, man. Let's get the show on the road.
I got half of the book written in about 3 weeks. It's just that, as I'm sure this will come up somewhere in your discussion of TurnKey Publishing, life starts taking on. And a part of writing, I'm sure, is the motivation. And you have to just,
Partially.
I got motivated in other areas, and I started neglecting something that's just every day I come back, and it was dark there. It's kind of like just taking it off my brain and typing it off, and then my mind got occupied with other things. I haven't gotten back in the mood. It's kind of like one of those romantic setting things, and the phone rings.
Well, I suspect that our viewers are going to put some pressure on you now, and you're being a guest host on this show.
That's why I'm so glad to be here.
You can't keep talking about publishing
I want
week
for the
after
audience
week.
to see how working with this formula actually renders a result. So yes, this is going to be part of my transformation and conclusion of my book. Being here as your co-host, or guest host on the show.
Well, actually, to be honest with you, from the show point of view and from the viewer's point of view, I think that that the fact that you're willing to put yourself out there and let people know of your challenges as you go through the publishing process is really a gift. It really is a gift to our viewers.
Well, thank you.
Because
I like the way you put a positive spin on that.
Well, it is because because the whole point of the show is to educate, inspire, motivate, and maybe set an example.
Sure.
So when someone, and I'm not saying that, there are plenty of people who are far more successful than me in publishing, okay? But what I can say is I've already produced 8 books and manuals, and there's probably at least 12 audio programs that I'm authored, not including the other half a dozen titles that I've published for other people. So, and I did that part-time, and within a span of a few years. So, so the thing about it is that it can be done with a limited amount of time, but you have to adopt a different mindset.
Yes.
And you have to shake some of the brainwashing that goes on in traditional publishing.
And if I can add another notion to that, some people are great cooks. They can from scratch make a cake, or they have these elaborate dishes that they can prepare. But some people with those abilities might not be as able to articulate in such a manner as to teach someone else to adopt the protocols, because you have a certain way of going about something that is in essence a creative process. And most of the time when you break things that are creative into scientific, you don't get the same result. But I think one of the other things that you all will probably appreciate about Matthew as we go through this is, I'm not going to say that he is not regimented, but he calls it his organic approach to developing things. But the point is, it's repetitive. So I think some of it is process, but then there's another part that is what you were really talking about when you said adopting a different paradigm.
Yes.
That is the philosophy.
Yes, you
And I
have
think
to
your
be able
philosophy
to.
is more
Yeah.
open architecture than closed, so to speak.
Well, you have to be willing to challenge the rules. I mean, what you should be doing. And as in another episode that I did with my friend Ray Williams, the show was called The Success Formation. Check it out. But there's a lot of shoulding going on.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
And part of it is stop the shoulding. Stop having people should on you.
Okay.
And so that's what I did. I stopped having people should on me, and I basically started with a clean slate and did a practical, analysis of what needed to be done, what absolutely needed to be done, and one of those things, of course, is an ISBN number.
Right.
Okay, but that's like so easy. Okay, and there's some other things that had to be done, but other than that, other than those 2 or 3 things that had to be done, it's all up to the interpretation.
Okay.
However, because publishing has been around for literally, centuries, I would say, well, maybe not centuries, but at least a couple hundred years,
Right.
in some way, shape, or form. And it's traditionally been done by people in elite positions.
Okay.
And, the whole notion of the average person being able to release books direct to market shakes. It's very scary. It's
Yeah.
very scary to them because they're going to say, a lot of talk is, oh, there's going to be a lot of crap out there. Oh, can you imagine if everyone put out their stuff out there? There is that scary thought. And my contention is the crap will fall by the wayside.
Yeah. Okay.
The market will sort all this out. If you put out crap, don't worry about it. You can print it out, but no one will buy it, or word will get out. But anyway, that's a whole different philosophical
Right.
discussion on the economics and market forces.
Well, if I can add one
Sure.
point to that relates to what you're just saying, and I might be wrong on the name, but I think Fred Smith, was he the founder of Federal Express?
Yeah, that's right. For Federal Express. Yes.
Yeah, and his and again these little readings that I've done from time to time, but he started with the question, why can't I get a package from Atlanta to L.A. overnight, or a letter? I mean, from the standpoint of there's plenty of things that go back and forth every single day within the course of a day. And he started with the question, and his thing was to sit down, and he had kind of took apart the normal processes and just disregarded those and just started tabula rasa. Okay, what has to happen in order to make this happen? And fundamentally came up with the blueprint architecture for what became Federal Express. And then he took it to the marketplace and obviously got it funded because it just made so much sense. And so I think a lot of what we're going to discover through the course of our discussions with each other and sharing with the audience out there is when you just break it down to what makes sense for doing this, it's really not what the, I guess the elite monolithic architecture has led other people to believe was required to actually publish your ideas and make them available to the world to share.
Yeah. As a clarification, the show that I'm doing is really for the little guy, for the small business owner, the entrepreneur. Okay, I'm not saying that traditional publishing can't borrow some of these ideas, but I make no bones about trying to spare anybody's feelings, especially the people in these monolithic positions.
You're not
Quite frankly, a lot of these traditional publishing companies are going to be out of business. And I said this a couple years ago. I said that a lot of them wouldn't be around in 5 years. Okay, and I still hold firm to that.
And what are the reasons?
Because
say that?
Because people are not willing to be challenged. In the age of the internet, people will not be denied. Okay, that's issue number one.
Okay.
Issue number two is that people are not willing to give up so much of the profits of their book and the control of their book, the creative freedom,
Right.
to somebody else, so they can support this huge office building and all this unnecessary staff, which I consider to be fat.
Okay.
People are not going to do that anymore. I mean, the cost of people are just not going to want to support that kind of infrastructure anymore. Okay? It's going to be very hard for these traditional publishing companies to compete with guys like me that can do this literally from their home office. And it's not going to be sustainable. The economics will sort itself out as more and more power as more people get empowered.
Okay.
And that's just a reality.
Right.
And I really don't care if really they don't believe me. But I'm just putting it out there to the small business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, that is what's happening if you study close enough. Those guys, they've got the warning for many, many years, and a lot of them are still in denial, and they're still trying to navigate and try to sort it out. The bottom line is a lot of them need to just shut down. I mean, that's the way it is. But
evolution.
That's right. Now, as we wind down this episode, Tony, maybe this is something that we'll continue in the next episode. Do you feel that it is possible for you to take a book now to market?
Do I believe that it's possible? Yes.
Yeah, for you.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And I guess being around you has encouraged my belief level to the point that I actually started. And certainly even from the standpoint to the audience out there, and we'll be learning more about this process, that if you don't have the issue of the writing, then for me, the issue was the publishing. For some people, they may be challenged in the writing area, but yes, I mean, I'm right here with you, so I certainly have confidence that you'll lead me down the right path to where my book will be published. But for all of the ones who are out there viewing this, let's follow this process. I mean, it's exciting, and one of the things that I always look at Chuck Yeager, who was the first guy to break the sound barrier. If you're the first one, maybe it's scary, you don't know if it'll work. Or I think about the Boeing 777, the one that was developed strictly using the technology. It was never all over the world. Everybody's contributing. This thing was finally put together in a hangar somewhere, I guess in Seattle somewhere, and then to be the test pilot to get in it to see was it going to fly. This isn't nearly as scary. I mean, you published multiple titles, you've done it, and so the challenge is for me to get beyond myself, because I know that the road that you'll lead everyone down is going to take us to the right destination, and I'm sure that a lot of the things that you're going to share with the viewers are going to be the same things that you shared that motivated me to get aboard and go for the ride. So I think that's where we are.
Well, I appreciate that, Tony. I'm glad that you think it's very possible, and so as we go through the series of this show, I'd like to get to the episode where we get to announce your book to the world at large and say, hey, we have a finished product.
There we go. Look forward to that.
All right. Well, thank you for listening in to the first episode of TurnKey Publishing. And we hope you will join us for our next episode, where we'll get more into the principles of turnkey publishing. Thank you.